My presentation is on female racial identity formation and the Disney princess.
Every girl is a princess. Let her shine.
As little girls, dramatic play is very important, and a common favorite form of dramatic play is this princess image with the fancy dress and the little crown. Disney pretty much owns this princess image, and in the last few years they have made it into a huge franchise. It grew over 300% between 2002 and 2005. So being that Disney owns this image and this franchise, it's important for us to look at how this image creates little girls' long-term self-esteem, and part of self-esteem is the formation of racial identity.
All little girls, have their favorite. Mine was The Little Mermaid. She was my absolute favorite. But all little girls have a Disney princess who they look up to, who they want to be, who they want to be like, who they dress up like, who they go to Disneyland to see and fawn over, and they love the movie, and they love all the toys. And black girls, they have their favorite too, like I said, The Little Mermaid. But I just feel like having a black princess is like so inspiring.
The problem is that media plays a key role in teaching children about themselves, history, and national as well as social possibilities. This defines their racial identity. And when the fairy tale world is almost all white, how can we pretend that as a society this is not teaching children about white privileging?
From all that, when we don't see ourselves, it affects our beauty self-concept, and we think that there's something wrong with us, so we try to adjust how we look to fit the image. Only problem is it doesn't work if that's not inherently who we are.
In an article about racial identity, self-esteem, and mental health, Mander states that media exposure among American children is high, and that African Americans tend to be negatively stereotyped, and viewing themselves negatively tends to lead to more mental health problems in the long run. So, having all of these white princesses, how does this affect young girls' images of themselves?
Thank you. Why do you want that skin color?
Because it looks lighter than this kind, because this looks a lot like that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't like the way brown looks, because the way brown looks really nasty for some reason, but I don't know what reason.
Now, for a lot of us, when we were growing up, when we were little, we didn't see ourselves represented in media, in culture, in movies, in magazines, and it affected our beauty self-concepts. Take me as an example. I grew up looking like this, but had to look at images of this, and this, and this.
The image of what is beautiful comes from media and what kids are shown. The following is a story told by comedian Moms Mabley. There lived a little girl. You all call her Cinderella. She had long black hair, pretty brown eyes, pretty brown skin. Well, let's face it, she was colored. Cinderella turns to the mirror and says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror replies, "Snow White. And don't you forget it."
I kind of wish I could go back and be a little girl so I could have had her as an option. And maybe, just maybe, I still would have liked The Little Mermaid. You never know. But then again, maybe I would have had Tiana is going to be her name. And maybe I could have been Tiana, And it would have done wonders for my self-esteem. And everyone else's self-esteem who looks more like Tiana than a redheaded mermaid. Maybe, just maybe.
I suppose you want a kiss.
Kissing would be nice, yes?
A Cinderella-type story was read to a group of children. The heroine is black, and she does not marry in the story. Yet, when asked to draw the main character, most children drew her white, no matter what their skin color was. One child's explanation was, "I mostly thought she'd get married and live happily ever after." Another said she imagined her dark, but she's drawing her blonde, and she doesn't know why. Yet another said she drew her yellow-haired because she was good, so she wanted to make her pretty. The implications that most, if not all, children see white as good and living happily ever after is very disturbing. We need to overcome these racist values.
About race. People want to believe we live in a colorblind society and that, race is a topic that makes people uncomfortable.
And they want to give their kids this sort of post-racial future when they're very young, and they are under the wrong conclusion that their kids are colorblind.
It's unfortunate you cannot just not accept that race is a factor in all of our lives, but you try to raise your kids as best as you can to overcome those obstacles and do the best they can as individuals, and then hopefully, they will be successful in whatever it is that they choose to do. But, again, you cannot get away from the fact that race is a factor.
By continuing to pretend that we are colorblind, we allow embedded messages in media to have power. By keeping this power in place, it encourages children to continue accepting media's moral simplification of good and bad. It also increases the likelihood that children will become adults who blame others for their unhappiness.
So when my parents said, "No, we won't have a TV in the house," I figured it meant we want everyone in the neighborhood to think we're weird. Because everyone did think we were weird for not having a television. Ironically, it was my parents who gave me my first media literacy lessons. For my mom, deconstructing movies like Cinderella or Flashdance, to my dad deconstructing television commercials, I learned early on to look for that untold story.
Children can learn to become critical viewers at an early age. It's just a matter of adults in society, parents, teachers, and caregivers to decide that this is something that's important to them and to help children learn the skills that it takes to find these embedded messages within media. Once they know how to spot these images, they can start to take away the power that these embedded messages have. By disabling them, we allow children to come to their own conclusions.
But you'll find that nowadays I've mended all my ways, repented, seen the light, and made a switch.
For most young girls, the Disney princess fantasy is a reality. So what can parents do to help girls form a positive identity while still allowing them to be a Disney princess? I divided this part into 4 easy steps. Step 1. Accept that media really does teach us about our values, our culture, and society. Until we accept media as a teacher, we have no chance of teaching children to critically view media and be able to question the values it teaches. Step 2. Stop pretending to be colorblind. Not acknowledging race just encourages white privilege. Step 3 is teaching children to be critical viewers. It's important when children view media for them to be able to spot images of racism throughout. Step 4. Make sure that you also provide lots of non-stereotyped images that kids can relate to, that allow them to see themselves and their race in a positive light to help them form a positive racial identity.
When you have that kind of power, when you're essentially becoming a dominant storyteller for children globally, we have to begin to ask very serious questions about what kind of stories are being told here. Are these the stories we really want our children to hear? Would we like to ask children to hear other kinds of stories? And if we don't ask those kinds of questions, then essentially we're allowing Disney to shape our children's imaginations.